and welcome to CTRM Radio, a podcast by Commodity Technology Advisory hosted on ctrmcenter.com and htcenter.net. My name is Irina Reitgruber, and today I will be talking with Managing Director of Brady, Regan, about changes on Nordic markets and impact of those changes on energy and software companies. Thank you, Chris, for participation. Please do like and share this podcast. So, Chris, when talking about Nordic markets, I would like to start with general question. So, Brady is well positioned on the Nordic market, but many international vendors are not. Why is that so? What are the specific of the market which makes more advances for local vendors and less for international ones?
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. I think the Nordic markets with the Nordic participants have invested in IT quite heavily as a country, as a skill set. So they have a huge kind of software industry which helps. But the key thing I think about vendors in the energy industry is the development of the Nordic market started out early on with separation of financial and physical. And so we have ETRMs that are purely financial, which are more generic, which you could imagine that vendors got into. But we also have a hugely physical time series based market based around the fact that geographically it's very hydro-led. So less of a dispatchable power station, less of renewables, historically hydro-led. And hydro was one of the original generation types that was high on data usage on high on time series. And what I mean by that is if I wanted to represent what I did with a coal power station back in the early 2000s, then it was very much an on-off. It was on for 12 hours a day, off for 12 hours a day, or on all the time. So it wasn't hugely granular on data. Whereas if you looked at the Nordics, the hydros was quite a different time series. That means that the design of software has been very data-led around time series management. And so therefore, those development of the software matches the generation of the assets in the areas. If you tried going to somewhere like the US market with its nodal market or the UK market, which was historically fossil fuel generated for a lot longer, the software was really around financial instruments. So Brady in its data manager and Brady with all of his products and the Nordics have historically been more suited to the time series and data types in that market, which is why I think it's incumbent dominated.
Okay, thank you. But it means that with growing share of renewables, it will be even more important to have data management, to have data-driven ETRM system. How competitive is this market now, you would say?
Well, it's got even more interesting. So I wrote a white paper a year and a half ago on why ETRMs now need EDMs. That's available on the Brady website. I know we've talked about it as well, Irina, but the key thing is the data requirements of a renewables intermittent led market are much more aligned with the Nordic data model than the traditional financial instrument trading data model born out of a UK, Germany, or US market. So we are finding, for example, our data manager is now selling very heavily internationally, and it's being considered by companies that have misused their ETRM to contain asset-based time series data instead of trading instruments, and now they're seeing performance problems. So 75% of my conversations on data manager sales and to data manager type customers are no longer Nordic customers looking for a BRP solution. It's actually customers looking for a data manager solution to complement their existing ETRM. And this is because the renewables is causing a data problem, but the Nordics were already there.
Okay, well, that's great opportunity. But now let's talk about changes which are upcoming in the Nordic market. So first of all, generally, the European market is extending both in wholesale market and ancillary service market, right? And what we see that with growing platforms like Mary and Picasso, more and more countries joining those platforms, certain price stabilization can be achieved. And Nordic countries are expected to join 2027, 2028. And now I think there are even more changes maybe is preparation to those platforms. So my question would be, what are those changes which you see currently and upcoming, and what are the biggest impact of those changes on energy companies? So where the biggest challenges for energy companies are?
Well, the regulatory change journey, especially for the Nordics, has been very, very heavy recently. So if I was to say what was the biggest, most recent change, under harmonization, similar to that rolling Mari and Picasa across Europe, we had the 15-minute market. So the expectation from ACER that we aligned the market interval to 15 minutes across all of those meant harmonization. That meant our traditionally hour-based Nordic market is now a 15-minute based Nordic market. That meant changes to ETRMs, changes to our data manager, but also changes to the exchanges in the way they run the auctions, etc. So that's been a 5-year project, which has now landed. We were particularly pleased at Brady with our response because our data manager realized quite early on that it's a huge burden on our customers migrating between markets to change all of their time series data from hourly time series to 15-minutely. So instead, we invented the hybrid time series where they were allowed to keep all their data in the same time series, but it changed granularity in the future. So it was a multi-granularity time series solution, which meant we were able to insulate our customers from huge migration issues. So that was the major, most recent one. Now, as you look across like Mari, Picasa, etc., I think very much about the Nordic MFRR EAM market. So this is a flexibility market that's already there, and the upcoming EAM version of AFRR as well. Now, those products are relatively simple in what they do. And we talk about harmonization, but what I don't see is harmonization of protocols and messages across all of the vendors, sorry, all of the countries. Instead, you have harmonizations of the concepts of the rules. So your file exchange with one TSO is not the same as that. So the burden on the vendors like ourselves is high because whilst you talk about harmonization, unfortunately, it's product harmonization, not communication harmonization. So it's a bit more difficult. I'm finding again that the data automation problem is coming in. So if you've moved from hourly to 15-minutely and you're going to have more interactive products, most of our customers now are demanding automation of ancillary product services. So if they bid their hydro plant or the renewable plant to offer flexibility up and down at 20 megawatts, for example, and they reschedule it to 25, they have to change their offer to the TSO. That needs to be automated now. We can't have someone cutting and pasting Excel numbers into a file and quickly pushing it out. So the demand for automation on ancillary services driven by harmonization is really high.
But if you look at the mill Europe, so the 15-minute granularity was already a long time ago. So many vendors are probably prepared to serve this market. Do you think there will be changes in competitive landscape in Nordic?
Yes, slightly, but as I come back to, if you were a supplier of software in Germany able to do 15-minute granularity and those ancillary services, it doesn't mean your communications protocol is already there. It just means your time series, your kind of time series is already there. What I'd also note is that ETRMs are very strong across Europe with strong when there's very liquid markets, so lots of trades going on. Yeah, those are much more fungible software solutions. You generally find that wholesale power that you contain in an ETRM is a fungible product, so they do travel across borders a lot more strongly. A time series data manager does as well, but connectivity to ancillary services is probably the less portable part of that. So I don't expect to see more internationalization because of harmonization in ancillary, because it's not the protocols, but I do to see more internationalization of wholesale type products like a data manager or an ETRM.
Okay, understand. And so, summarizing, what is the unique selling point for Brady with at the moment and in expectation of all those changes?
Well, I think that we have a Nordic-based ETRM, but also a SaaS-based ETRM, both of which sell locally and internationally. So I think that's very strong. But the thing I like to go to about Brady and our unique selling point is probably I'm going to talk about our data manager. This year, we have been celebrating the 30th anniversary of contracts with customers that are large embedded generation and consumers in Norway. And what I really love is the product that we sold them, our data manager, is in its fifth installation technology wise. So it's brand new tech, but it's got 30 years of IP sitting in it, 30 years of customer feedback sitting in it. So we are the epitome of the old and the new coming together, as in all of the learning for many, many years, but we haven't got the legacy of old tech. We continuously reinvest and relaunch our products at the moment. So really happy that we have something that, I have customers who have been using the product for 30 years, and I've got customers who are just buying the product last week. And it's the same technology, but some of them know it very well and some are new to it, and they're all very happy with the product. So I'm really pleased that we can offer IP as well as modern tech stack.
Okay, that's interesting. You also have Power Desk, which is a short-term trading tool. You have scheduling, and you cover the protocols which are needed for communication for Nordic market. And you have finally
Yeah.
CTRM and the data management. All those tools are integrated, or you are selling them module by module?
So the tools can be integrated. We like to think about a modular approach. So, for example, we have a pan-European scheduler with connections to over 30 TSOs and all of the major interconnectors. We have to make that product talk to any ETRM, because some of our customers have got other ETRMs. So we try to make our products work well together, but we also try to make sure that they can work with other vendors' products as well. Now, my general finding is that despite us as Brady having an ETRM, a credit risk report, a market-leading data manager, our Power Desk traders dashboard, and our algo solution, and the scheduler I've mentioned, buyers are not scared of a modular approach anymore. I think if I went back 10 years, when you think about the growth of some of the larger vendors like Ion trying to buy everything, people wanted to try a one vendor solution. I'm not convinced that's the buying strategy anymore. I think there's enough technology going into middleware to allow anything to talk to anything and open API structures that the buyer wants to buy the right product for each bit of their business. So if they have a modular approach, they're going to buy some modules from Brady and some others. We, of course, make sure our products work together through the API structure, but we don't try making sure that everyone has to go in a closed ecosystem. We're not what I'd call an Apple. We're much more open to it.
How do you see the market? Is market moving to more and more ecosystem, more and more modular approach based on breed purchasing, or there is some kind of comeback to the monolithic ETRM? So some people are saying that the market stopped looking for ecosystem because it is too complicated with interfaces. So how do you see the market from this point of view?
I see it going back to the ecosystem. I think that we probably went through that period too early where the products weren't well connected, where people tried a modular system. I think that's quite a few years ago. I see now in RFPs for parts of ecosystem, the first thing I see from large companies is we are happy to work with a number of vendors. I think that the large companies out there don't want a different vendor for every product. They like to consolidate. So if they had 10 systems, they may not want 10 vendors, but they may want 3 or 4, so they can do vendor management sensibly, but they don't feel locked into anyone's ecosystem. That's the kind of language I'm seeing now. And even some, they've got incumbent products that maybe they'll take functionality out of and put into a better product so they unburden them. We're involved with a large customer at the moment that's put too much data in their ETRM, and they're buying our EDM to ensure that they actually don't have to do an ETRM upgrade anymore because they've misused it, misconfigured it, rather than it's the wrong product for them.
Okay, thank you very much for this conversation. It was very interesting, and yeah, have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching this interview. Please subscribe, like, and share this episode. That would really help us. Thanks again, and bye.